how did this film evolve? How did it come together?
So I was working in theater for many years, and I was in Kiev producing a play. And our designer for the play, our set designer, was a very eccentric artist named Fyodor. And he had this idea, and he convinced me to follow him to explore this idea, that Chernobyl was somehow not an accident, and that the catastrophe was connected to a secret Soviet radar that sits in the shadow of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. So I was intrigued, and I was fascinated by Fyodor's presence and his personality, so I agreed. But I had never made a film before, so I thought that I would make a short film, maybe a 5 or 7 minute piece. That was the original plan. But when we started asking questions, when we started researching, the project quickly became much larger. A longer project, stranger, more dangerous, and more intense than we expected. So eventually it became a feature-length doc. And we premiered at Sundance Film Festival last year, and it's been a wild ride since. We've been to almost 100 festivals, and this is our last stop. So
we're happy to have you.
Yeah.
You just alluded to some of the dangers of making this documentary. Could you expand upon some of the things that occurred while you were making it?
Yeah, well, the first danger, I guess, was going into Chernobyl. We did take certain precautions because the radiation levels are still quite high, but you never really know in that part of the world. The safety features didn't always work, so we still don't know exactly how dangerous it was. Probably it was not that dangerous. We went in very quickly, filmed the scenes that we needed, and then got out. But it's not a traditional documentary, and our scenes are not traditional, so we do have some exploration of the Chernobyl zone. But while we were there, it was Artyom and Fyodor's idea to also film some of Fyodor's dreams in an abandoned, well, everything in Chernobyl is abandoned, but in a destroyed children's school. And Fyodor has a torch and you can call him naked. He's not entirely naked, but he's close. And he's wandering through this dead city, almost as if he's a spirit searching for another evil spirit. So I think we're probably the first people to ever film at Chernobyl such a scene, and that may have been the most dangerous while we were there. Otherwise, when the war broke out, the revolution broke out, that was also quite dangerous. I was too afraid to stay for long, so I was there for a few moments, and then I left the front lines. But Artyom, our cinematographer, stayed to shoot the revolution. He was almost killed by gunfire. We're very lucky that he recovered and that he's still with us. He's still making movies. There were a lot of challenges. We had to jump through a lot of hoops to get to this secret Soviet radar. Once we got there, it's one of the largest radars ever constructed. And again, I didn't have the guts to climb it, but our crew members, led by the very brave and slightly crazy Artyom, climbed to the top of this massive, rusting, radioactive, swaying in the wind iron structure. That was also quite terrifying. But really, for me, the most difficult and the most challenging aspect of the whole project was editing all of this footage and all of these stories, going back 100 years of Ukrainian history to the very recent Ukrainian revolution, to try to bring it all together and tell it through the eyes of Fyodor, our protagonist. That was the biggest challenge for me.
And in the film, your protagonist, Fyodor, he says Chernobyl was like a fairy tale. What I'm curious from both of you is, it's definitely a region of the planet that very few people go to. What was your feelings and emotions when you were there in Chernobyl shooting?
For me, the biggest impression was how peaceful it was and how much life was there. Obviously, no human life, but there were birds, bird songs, nature's overgrown, the abandoned buildings, green trees. It was really amazing. And on the ground, on the roads, mosses, they almost seemed prehistoric. These thick carpets of green moss had recolonized these asphalt plazas. That was really that was to me a very strange sight. It's the sight of what happens to a city when humanity disappears overnight.
It wasn't my first time in Chernobyl, and I remember my first feeling in Chernobyl. It was around 10 years ago. I'm shooting another movie, and with me protected two militaries with guns. And when I went to empty homes in Chernobyl, they protected me because some wild animals, bear or wolf, can attack me because they lived in empty homes. It was danger, but with the Russian Woodpecker movie, it wasn't so scary for me. Yes.
Well, watching the film today with you guys are such great collaborators. How did you two guys meet?
So, as I said, when we started the project, it was a very small one. We had a micro budget, and we were planning on doing most of it over the course of a week, and assuming that it would be 5 or 7 minutes and put up on YouTube. So I had a friend who could operate a camera. I invited him to come along, but Fyodor, the protagonist, the first day that we met, he said, I have a friend. His name's Artem. He can operate a camera, and he will be joining us. And I thought initially, oh, good Lord, another person. You know, every time you add one crew member, it just makes everything exponentially more complicated. I thought, I have to feed this guy. I've got to drive him around. But it turned out to be the biggest blessing of the entire project, because not only is Artem one of the great cinematographers of documentary, and it's not just me saying that, he just won the International Documentary Award Cinematographer of the Year for 2015. He's not only he has a great eye for composition, but he has a fearlessness that's absolutely essential if you want to do an investigatory type documentary. So it was one of the luckiest days of my life when Artem joined the project. But I didn't know it at the time, and a lot of this film has been like that. Surprises and great good fortune that kept meeting us at every turn. Of course, we also had a lot of ill fortune, if you include sniper fire and secret police threats and such.
This was your first feature-length documentary. It's a huge undertaking. As you said, it started with small steps with that short film and then expanded. What I was wondering with you two guys is what are some of the things that you learned as the project was evolving and you were shooting and editing?
Well, I learned everything about film from this project because it's my first documentary. It's my first film of any length since I did a Super 8 project when I was 15 or 16. So everything that you have to know about putting together a film, I learned on the job, and I learned from YouTube. You know, in the old days, probably you had to go to school and take classes. Now you can find an answer to almost any imaginable film question online. So I learned all about editing. I learned all about how to set up an interview. One thing that we learned quite early is that if any of the Soviet people, the Russians or the Ukrainians, knew that there was an American involved in the film, they would zip up their lips, and if they did speak, they would give us misinformation. And so I learned very soon that we had to build a special closet where I could hide so that I could do the interviews and no one would know that I was involved. So I would be in this behind a door or in a closet sending by Skype questions to our team. And in that way, we were able to slowly get people to open up. Artem, did you learn anything?
I'm learning how to speak with Chad because a few times Fyodor and another Ukrainian producer involved me to meet Chad, and I did not want because I went to Russian school and everybody told me that Americans it's not smart and very, very heavy. And I'm sorry that I will see some heavy, not smart man and what I can tell him. But after when I meet Chet, I'm understand him a lot, that he has a great brain, very smart, and I'm very respect him because he start to learn Russian because he want to read Anna Karenina Tolstoy in original, and it's very respect for me.
A lot of people over here recently, Ukraine has been in the news, and obviously Russia is trying to encroach upon Ukraine and its independence yet again. I was wondering, since you were in Independence Square, could you talk about what that was like to be there and capturing footage of the events?
What was it like to be in Maidan and shooting?
I went to Maidan when I was a child, and I playing snowballs in Maidan Square. So for me, when a revolution happened, it's like happening like Christmas time, and everybody smile, everybody support each other, give food, meeting new friends, and when you shooting through the camera, you see not real life. It's like you inside a movie, and you never expect that it could be hurt and violence in other side of right police. And when it's happened, it was biggest surprise for me, because I don't understand how people can fight each other.
And what is the current situation in Ukraine right now?
It's hard to say, because last 2 years we lost a lot of thousand people with the war in Russian, and still every day somebody dies in Ukrainian and Russian side. So we wait in a big war. We don't believe in a peace with Russia, or Russia falls, or Ukrainian. But it's hard to say, because my parents are Russian. It's half to Ukrainian, half Russian. Hard to say, because all people in Ukrainian, a lot of them speak Russian, and it's biggest problem. We did not have independent countries more than 300 years. So we have to learn how to be independent without anyone, because I don't know how to say.
And what do you hope that people take from when they have the opportunity to see the Russian woodpecker, what they would take from that?
I guess for me, I would hope that people would enjoy the journey that I went on and learn what I learned, and that was that the Soviet Union is not just ancient history, that this battle, these what we call the ghosts of the Soviet Union, that they're still alive. They're in Ukraine, they're in Russia, they're in Eastern Europe. They're even farther afield. You could even say that some Soviet way of thinking is still here in America. So what I learned by working on this project is that these ghosts are very strong, and that in the sort of the soul or the heart of the new generation, there's a battle going on as to which side will prevail. Whether it is the side that wants to be closer to an authoritarian society where everyone is told what to do, or whether people want to take the difficult path and build an independent state and to be independent thinkers with a free judiciary and a free press. These are very complicated things and difficult things to build, to root out corruption. These are all important battles that are still going on. And people, the Soviet ghosts are very strong, and they're very dangerous, and they're not going to go without a fight.